Hello, viewers. Welcome to another wonderful session. And as we always do on Frank's Project Pause, we bring you the most important aspects of project management that can be applied readily on each and every one of your projects. We have had some insightful sessions in the past, and today is no exception. What makes today much more exciting is that we are going to have the first female on this podcast. And we are committed to ensuring that we bring you the knowledge, the skills, and the experience, irrespective of where it is coming from. And so we are reminding you that do subscribe to our channel, share with your colleagues, comment, and let's have the conversation together. Your feedback is so important to us. It helps us make it better. This morning, we are going to have another exciting session, and I'm going to mention the name of our guest, and she will do the introduction herself. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Otema Yirenkyi. Otema, great to have you.
Frank, thank you so much for inviting me to be on your show, Project Pulse. What an honor. So, a little bit about myself. I have about 25 years' experience in tech and telecoms. I've worked at big companies such as IBM, Microsoft, Vodafone, Salesforce, and I also had a global role at the Project Management Institute. And that's actually how Frank and I got to know each other.
Right,
Exactly.
right. Otema, it's so exciting to have you this morning. And I would want us to start off with our conversation.
Mhm.
Your experience in all these areas, the places that you have worked with, your experience, your learnings, your entire experience. How have all these places helped in shaping Otema to the Otema that we see today?
That's a great question. And I think it's a journey. So, in the first part of the journey, I think IBM was the place that really built me in terms of my skills and competencies because they were very dedicated to employee learning and also putting me on global opportunities. So, I got the chance to travel. At one point, they called me the sea and sand girl because I was in the Caribbean. I was in the Oman, which is in the Middle East. I was in South Africa. So I really got to have an expansive experience, and that built my foundational skills. And it also taught me to be curious. And so I even earned a patent with my colleagues during the time because I was very curious about software and technology, and we came up with a software patent. So that was amazing. And then as I grew, then the key thing was how do I become a leader? And leadership skills are really focused not just on competency and capability, but also on how you lead people. And then how do you position yourself? So, both in communications, and so other companies like Microsoft, who put me as the first country GM for Ghana, and I was the first woman to do that for Africa. And so it showed me that leadership is also you can break barriers, and leadership is about new frontiers, but it's also about meeting the basics, making sure that your team is hitting those numbers, is driving and building strong stakeholder relationships. Those are all very important. And as you then move up and you become a leader of leaders, which I had the honor of doing in my PMI role as well as in Salesforce, then you have to deliver through others. And that's also a different skill because when you are an individual contributor, you're doing everything on your own. But then you have to move to the stage where you can be a leader of leaders. And how do you inspire them? How do you ensure that they have what they need so that they can also cascade it down to their teams? And so that's what I've learned in that journey.
Wow. And that is interesting. A lot of the time you see many people focusing only on the hardware aspect of leadership, but you have hit the nail right on the head talking about soft skills and how you would be able to get other leaders to get others to do the work whilst you report on the numbers. You did mention stakeholder engagement among others, but I would want to find out what has been your greatest challenge in dealing with stakeholders, and how did you navigate them?
Sure. So, with in the technology area,
Mm,
the key challenge with many of the stakeholders is that you're bringing something new.
mm,
And so the key component is around change management. How do you convince, let's say, for example, particularly when we were moving many clients to cloud solutions? So they're used to having their data center on site and they can touch and feel it. And suddenly you're saying you're talking to a bank,
mm,
you're talking to an insurance company where they have very sensitive data and they have concerns about that. And I think, as I said, you have to be very competent in your area. So if you're dealing with a stakeholder, lead with your competence, lead with your skills and capability to say, yes, this can be done. And then, secondly, work with them to understand what their challenges are. And so you bring them along in the journey. So lead with your competence and also listen. Listen to what their concerns are and address them, meet them head on. I think those are some of the things that really help in terms of stakeholder management. And then also, you have to be able to be somebody, especially as a leader, to be able to convene a space. And what I mean by that is you have to have the ability to call that CEO, the ability to talk to the CFO, and bring them, if you will, to that table of your understanding.
mm,
And then that puts you as, yes, I am the leader.
mm.
I can get this done.
Interesting. Otema, you're making it sound so easy,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm looking at the situation where stakeholders have needs, they
Mm-hmm.
have expectations,
Mm-hmm.
and they would want to see certain features that were not originally
Mm-hmm.
agreed from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
but would want them introduced midway, halfway through the
Mm-hmm.
project. As you engage them, they do not want to match the money side of matters,
Yeah.
even though they want the other features introduced, they are not ready to up the budget.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with such situations? I mean, if you have encountered, how did you deal with them? And if you haven't,
Mm-hmm.
if you do now, how would you deal with such a situation?
So I encounter that all the time.
Mm,
But I think, listen, what is it that we're trying to do with the customer? So the first question is, what is the need? And so you start from a benefits based approach.
okay.
Right? And so you should be able to show them what's that return on investment. If I'm asking you to spend 100, I want to know that if it's let's say in the technology world, what would be that total cost of ownership? And then what's the benefit to the customer? So let's say, for example, in technology, a lot of times we looked at areas of productivity. So you're doing things in a very manual way. Maybe it's going to cost you to convert to an automation, but look at the time savings, look at the cost savings, and then look at how you can be much more effective to the end customer. When you're able in real using data, and I often stress this, a lot of people go into the conversations and they don't have data to back up their assumptions. So you must have the data to back the assumptions. You should have at least clearly defined some specific parameters that you're going to test against to be able to show the customer, yes, indeed, this is going to work. And then come in. So I've often come in with, here's what you do today, clearly stating, here's what, with our solution, with our system, here's what you could be. And you give them that aspiration. So I typically, from a stakeholder perspective, just to round up, I always seek the C-suite as a leader because they have a vision. And if I can translate that vision into the technology, boom, you're winning.
Wow, that's awesome. And I believe viewers might be having these kind of challenges within their projects. And I believe this particular response is going to help them to deal with such situations. I see with all the experience you have gained, you are bringing them to bear in the ESG space on projects. And you have been talking about green economy. What is ESG and how does it play a role in projects or in project management as a professional, as a space?
So that's a great question again. So ESG, so first let's even define what it is. So it's like environment, E, S is the social, G is governance.
Okay.
Okay. And so there are global standards around that. And what it is that you want to be able to measure those. So let's give a concrete example. You might be working on a project for a mining company, okay? And that mining company would need to have specific reporting against that. So the environment could be, how are they impacting the water in the area? In terms of the S, it could be societal. So are they investing in this community? Maybe they put in boreholes or every thing to support the community. And then the governance is how they manage their environment. So those things are now really important for both governments and investors and financiers in order to make decisions against the company. Right? So government is looking from a compliance perspective, financiers are looking at it from a financing perspective, and you as the project manager now need to ensure that you are developing your project in such a way that you can capture those metrics. And so at the beginning of your project charter, it's super important to understand, I have to measure these things. So what are the metrics, and how during the course of the project will I be able to gather those and report against them?
Very interesting. So it stands to reason that project managers today should move beyond just the technical aspect of understanding their construction projects, their farming projects, their human development, whatever project, but rather also look at the ESG aspect. So let's look at the typical situation of a road construction. What would be some of the pointers that the project manager should look at in being able to incorporate ESG?
So let's say for that road, it's going to go through a community. So he must incorporate that community engagement process. Maybe you're going to have to destroy certain homes or to widen the road, or maybe there might be an impact in other ways. So it's very important to incorporate so that that community, that society, that has to be in the project planning. Okay. And then also, if there are going to be any environmental implications, and you've always been doing this, I know most project managers, but now it's around those metrics and measures that are going to be critical. So you have to embed that into the project design so that you know that we have to do the following and we have to measure it, and then we have to report against the impact.
Cool. Now, I do understand that there might be certain project managers who may be quite oblivious of this, whilst others may have from basic to intermediate understanding of what we are discussing today. Nonetheless, if we have the understanding and the policymakers and the sponsors do not have the understanding of ESGs, at the end of the day, they will be paying for everything we are doing. How do we get the awareness at the top level, the policy level, before coming down to the project managers and leaders level?
And I think something great has happened in terms of in Ghana with the new legislation in 2025, and so that now has the Environmental Protection Agency as that sort of overarching, and they have the supervisory capacity, regulatory, etc. So now you've got this, if you will, that single source of truth that you would go to. And so I think it begins there, first educating your membership around that. And I think that's something that they should look into. So they educate themselves around, these are the new this is the new directive, this is the new regulations that we must adhere to, and making sure that maybe in some kind of workshops or seminars that they're made aware of that. And secondarily, as a community, advocating and ensuring that these kinds of specific directives, are they going to make things more onerous? Is it going to be more expensive? So how do you, as community and sort of groups, advocate with your as a professional body to kind of make sure you understand it, but also that it impacts you positively and not adversely. And so I think your voice should be part of that decision making and implementation.
Okay, that's great. Here's a case you rightly pointed to, a legal framework that is going to be helpful in regulating everybody. Beyond the project manager, the project leader, I I'm wondering how we could also get policymakers to understand, so that when the project manager goes to them with ESG budget on ESG and all
Right.
that, it will not be thrown away and would get an approval with very minimal resistance. Beyond what you just said, what do you think can be done in sensitizing policymakers at the top, at the government level, so that they also get that kind of awareness that you proposed for the professionals?
Yeah, so I think that currently there's definitely a growing awareness, and I think this new legislation in 2025, there's a lot of work being done to sensitize sort of government as well as the private sector on these requirements. So I think it also is a wonderful opportunity for the project management sort of association to kind of be spearheading also that voice and saying, these are really important, this is how it impacts us, and therefore you become at the seat at the table. I think that could be one of the ways to sensitize. But also, very importantly, in project design, even before you're getting to implementation, I think that ESG needs to be there so that it's not an afterthought. Okay? And that is a very, I think, a shift in thinking, right? So that in my project design, so I put that not you, the project manager, but in the people who are designing the projects. And increasingly, you're beginning to see that. It's no longer an afterthought. It's in there so that you can budget effectively for it. And then you can also ensure that there's something very interesting. I wanted to share this, that Ghana now has a carbon market office, okay? And so that's for the trading of carbon credits. So think about it. If you are setting out a project and you're thinking, oh, I could potentially get carbon credits, which could be a portion of your income for the whatever project you're doing. So let's say, for example, I know of that some timber companies that they see carbon as maybe even 5% of their revenue. So they are growing and they are adhering to the global standards in such a way that they could get the revenue from selling the carbon credits that are derived from their business.
Wow.
So that's the green economy. And so if you are now a business, think about, how can I benefit? We now have a carbon market office. How do we get into that type of business?
That's interesting. You roped in green economy.
Yes.
And today our discussion is focusing on ESG and then dovetailing into green economy. You have rightly mentioned, and vis-a-vis the carbon market that you mentioned, how would you explain to the layman
Yes.
what the green economy is?
So the green economy is, you can look at it in two ways, okay? So it's around, am I doing things that are conserving the environment? So maybe I'm having biogas business, okay? And so biogas, it does what? It takes food waste and sort of, in some cases, you can also take human or animal waste and create energy for cooking, and then the effluent that comes out is fertilizer, right? So that's a green economy, and it's also circular, okay? There's people who are fertilizer companies that they just take all the food waste from the markets and stuff, and they create organic compost, and fertilizer.
Okay.
That's green economy.
Okay.
Green economy is also electric vehicles. Okay. And then also the green economy is thinking about these financing structures I'm talking about, the carbon markets. So as you can see, the green economy is one, it's quite expansive. It covers many sectors. So agriculture, transportation, construction. There's even green buildings, right? How do you build in a green way? Using solar, wind for your energy consumption. So the green economy is across sectors of the economy, and it's also within finance, it's within projects, and it's also within sort of human development.
Interesting. You mentioned green buildings. In your understanding, what could make a building receive, say, a certification as a green building? What would be some of the features
Sure.
that you can think of that could cause a building to qualify for a green building?
So, I mean, I'm certainly not an expert in the building side, but some of the things that are clear is your energy consumption. So it's around the efficiency, how efficiently you're consuming energy. It could also be mean in the design, the types of physical structure you're building. So energy needs, so whether you're leveraging solar, whether you're harvesting rainwater, that can also be, and then actual materials that you use and how you harness the sun, the light, etc. So those types of things, that's what I'm aware of. And I'm sure that those who are much more technical in building than me know the details of how you get there.
Okay. Okay. That's very insightful. It's these are things that we or many project managers had only imagined. But with this conversation, it is becoming clear that they are really doable and achievable. Now, looking at the interventions you mentioned, there is also this called Ghana Green Guard. What is your idea about it, and how do you think it can fuse into the entire green economy agenda for Ghana?
So what I understand about the initiative is it's around afforestation, right? And looking at these degraded areas. Obviously, we've had huge impact of Galamsey, and really trying to restore them. So it's an opportunity to create jobs in those kind of frontier areas, and also to conserve our forests. Now, back again, when you can conserve your forests, etc., and you reforest a deforested area, what happens? You have the opportunity to create what they call a carbon sink, and that creates the credits. So I'm always back to the financial benefit of that as well, so that you benefit as whether you are a timber area and you want to, or the mining companies, or even farms themselves. So I think it's really important to look at where you are in the ecosystem and how you can impact positively the green economy.
Wow. So looking at the benefits that would accrue to a business or a project manager who embeds ESGs and the green economy considerations in their project planning, beyond the money that could come by way of selling credits, what other intangible benefits could you share with us that could accrue to the business or the project manager who is doing things right?
Sure. So oftentimes there is a compliance element, right? So let's say you're the project manager there, and you need to ensure that the project is adhering to it, so that you don't have any fines and penalties. So that's really from a compliance perspective. So that's super important, because right now that's going to be a critical factor as well. Then you also have that sort of from the corporate social responsibility perspective, and how you impact the community relationships. That's also very important. I was remembering reading somewhere that a project went forward and didn't really focus on the social, in terms of the community. Then what happened? It stalled the project because the community obstructed it. Right? Every time they tried to lay the road, they destroyed it. Now, had they done some community engagement, so the intangible there is building the relationship, could have easily helped them to save what? Money.
And now their refusal to do that is hurting their
Yes.
reputation.
Yes.
That
So there's
is,
that reputational risk,
yeah.
as well as it hits their pocket as well.
That's very, very insightful. So we're looking at all these. What are some of the challenges that you have faced with your engagement within the space, and then also what do you foresee are going to be the challenges that we are likely to face?
I think one challenge that I have faced is around the community engagement, because sometimes it takes a really long time to get everyone aligned, but I think it's important. So that's one area that sometimes you face, particularly in the construction and road areas, and even in farming communities. I think one area too is getting the right metrics and reporting. It's very difficult because you've got to align your systems to be able to capture the data correctly. And that's also a challenge on reporting.
Okay. Thank you very much, Otema. We are going to continue when we come back. At this point, we are taking a commercial break. Let's get some message from our sponsors. We'll be right back. Don't forget to like, share our links, and also subscribe to our channel. Let's be part of the conversation. Let's hear from you, and we will be ready and happy to respond to your queries and also infuse your advice and suggestions into our sessions. Thank you.